Hey, pet parents, and welcome to this episode of Your Natural Dog. Today, our guest is Dr. Joyce Liy, who is one of our favorite young, up-and-coming, fresh, holistic vets. We met Dr. Liy. Well, I met Dr. Liy at Super Zoo in Vegas. Angela met her kind of serendipitously also at AHVMA, and we both separately kind of fell in love with this brilliant young woman. Dr. Liy is another one of these vets who straight out of vet school kind of realized that she needed more tools in her toolkit and saw that she didn't, everything that she learned in vet school didn't really give her the full spectrum of what she needed to help these animals. And so she went out and she continued to educate herself. And this is a continuation of this series that we've been doing of what vets aren't taught in vet school. So we're going to hear this conversation. We're going to hear about her journey and her learning process through school and afterwards, and how her philosophies about healing have adapted and changed, and just give you some more insight into what is possible when you have these new age of vets who are really doing what is necessary in order to keep adapting and come at our pets' health from a really broad and multidimensional strategy point. This is a great conversation. I love hearing Angie talk to these young vets. They're really special. So please enjoy this conversation as much as I did. This is Joyce Liy and Angela Ardolino.
I have a 5-year-old border collie named Wednesday who suffers from car ride anxiety and travel anxiety. I have a 9-year-old Great Dane named Moxie who's starting to get arthritic and hard to get up and move around since she's getting older. Then I have a 15-year-old dog named Harley who suffers from severe arthritis and dementias. Wednesday would just sit there and shake the entire car ride, which I didn't want to put her through that, so I stopped bringing her places. Moxie was having a hard time getting up and down the steps and in and out of bed. And Harley, he was having a really difficult time even just getting up from the laying position, and he would whine and cry and bark at night, wouldn't get a full night's sleep. I've tried the other supplements, I've tried prescriptions, and I just didn't really like the side effects. I felt like the bad outweighed the good. So that's when I decided to give hemp oil a try. Since using this product, I can take Wednesday anywhere. I give her hemp oil about 20 minutes before the car ride and she is good to go. Moxie can run and keep up with her 5-year-old sister, and it's just great to see them playing again. And even Harley can jump off in the couch now, which is great. And even when he is laying on the floor, he goes to get up and he just pops right up, and it warms my heart. And I'm just using one thing for all my dogs that range from 50 pounds to 145 pounds, and it's all natural, and I know I'm not doing more harm than good.
And we're back with Dr. Joyce Liy, who I met you, remind me, the first time I met you was at the Holistic Veterinarian Conference, right?
Actually, we met
first
at
time I
Super
got to
Zoo
meet
first. Oh, no.
Wow.
Angela,
Don't
I
even
met
remember.
you at the Holistic Conference. You're right. And Carter, I met at Super Zoo.
We met at Super Zoo in Vegas.
Yeah.
And the reason
Couple
we
of
met,
Vegas
I was
girls.
introduced. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you guys met at Super Zoo. Well, I noticed you, and I had to meet you because I fell in love with your dog, Bender, who is a beautiful Doberman pinscher. And they hold a very special place in my heart. And
Yes.
he's such a good boy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Good.
I know. I love him, but of course I'm a little bit biased because I'm his mom.
Yeah, they're so good. And I know how hard it is to raise and train a Doberman. So props to you that he is so
Thank
well
you.
behaved. And didn't you say he just got his certificate for being a good citizen?
Yeah, so he just finished his Canine Good Citizen certification. So his next step is going to be going into his therapy class training so that we can start doing some volunteer work in local hospitals and, just elderly homes and things like that. Yeah.
Oh, neat. I love it.
He's
well,
perfect.
the reason, yes, he is.
He really is.
He is.
Yeah.
He's such
He
a
loves the
ham. He
pets.
loves it. The reason I'm gonna do this series, which is basically talk about what veterinarians are not taught. And the reason I do this series, and I keep doing them, especially with young vets like yourself is that people don't believe it. I literally just came from a conference where this older man came up to me and cornered me and said, "Hey, got your magazine. I listened to like all of your podcasts. Love what you're doing, but that's just not true what you're saying about veterinarians." I'm like, "What am I saying about veterinarians?" So that they're not taught about. And I'm at a pet conference. I'm not sure what this man did, but I'm at like where people, know better. And he said, you say that they have to pay $250,000 or more for their education. You say that that they don't get trained in diet and nutrition, and that's just not true. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure on those episodes that I am interviewing a veterinarian who is telling me that it is true. Yeah. And I want, and of course I always get blamed. Don't bash veterinarians. I'm not bashing veterinarians. I'm simply, when I found this out, it empowered me to go, why am I putting all of my pet's health into someone else's hands who has no idea about diet and nutrition and is recommending something that I know is a processed food, and that doesn't make sense. Now it makes sense to me. They don't get taught that. So I want to talk about, because I always know that I can have these conversations with vets like you, because you got out of school and continued to educate yourself. I want to ask you, what was that like? You got out of school and were you like, I don't think I have all the tools? Or like, what was it like? What did you feel?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018. Vet school, I think it's great to really give you that foundation and the basis of understanding all the knowledge that comes into the medical field and, really learning about the body, the physiology, and all those things. But there's so much knowledge out there, right? And science is always developing, we're always learning. And so even if you're doing 4 years of school, you do your prior education before you go to vet school, it's not going to be enough. You're going to have to still come out and be willing to learn and then take that practice on and continue your education a little bit more. So, unfortunately, you are a little bit correct in that aspect where we aren't taught enough about nutrition. We have a few courses and then they're kind of like, okay, bye. You guys did great. You learned everything else, but there's just so much to learn about medicine that really there's only, nutrition is a small component and really they don't give us enough.
Where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I graduated from Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine, and then I did my clinical rotations at LSU, Louisiana
That's
State.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that you did get at least 3 courses in diet and nutrition, because let's see, I think we had Dr. Megan Barrett on a little while ago, and she got none. She said it got bumped. It kept getting bumped because something else, and that they didn't get any. And they had like a pamphlet or booklet or something that they were handed, and it was all Hills Science.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
nutrition.
Yeah.
So I mean, controlled.
Yeah, small courses, right? They're like 1 or 2 semester classes where, nutrition 1, nutrition 2 kind of thing. They help you calculate things overall, like, energy requirements for pets, a little bit of what we need to do as far as balancing nutrition. But at the end of the day, I think because where we are sitting now in nutrition wise, they kind of just tell you, what, everything's already set in the nutrition industry, that you don't have to worry about really educating your clients on this. All you have to do is just promote the food that's already out there because the work has already been done for you. So it kind of pushes it in the back burner and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to promote these brands and these food bags because they already did the work. And then it kind of just, it allows you to not really, especially if it's not like your forte or you don't really have that passion about it, then you're kind of just like, okay, well then at least I know this is what I can recommend. It's balanced, and then you just move forward with something else. But yeah,
that makes sense.
So it's really not a philosophy around like food as medicine, the way that I think a lot of vets look at it now.
No. And I think, that's kind of where we're going with even in human medicine, right? Like we just focus on our pharmaceutical drugs and our Western style of medicine, which does save lives. It's important. I do feel like it's, important to integrate both. But yeah, food is Thai medicine. And I think we needed to take a step back and realize that a lot of the things that we're doing, we can prevent these illnesses if we take care of ourselves, same like our pets. And, we're not doing that. So it's unfortunate that we're not really being able to say, okay, let's look at this in a more holistic approach as far as like, what's going on in your environment, what are you feeding yourself, things like that, so that we can prevent the causes of these diseases to happen.
Nothing better than hearing a doctor or veterinarian talk about prevention. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
So when you were explaining how, the food, they said here, these people have already figured out the diets and it's all based on science and being balanced. So just send them over to these guys. Isn't
Yes.
that the same thing that's going on with the pharmaceutical drugs, that they're literally saying, here's how you diagnose this. This is what it pretty much is probably going to be, this problem. And here's the drug you write the prescription for.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately where I also, when I was practicing, just general medicine, I got a little bit frustrated because it did come to the point where, we have a patient, let's say patient A is diagnosed with, some chronic illness like kidney disease. We're going to ultimately have a plan as far as like, okay, A, B, and C, these are the same drugs we're going to use for every single animal. And we don't really tailor it individually to the needs of that specific patient. And so I think ultimately, a lot of these drugs, yeah, they're going to work quickly and they're pretty effective. But at the same time, because they're so effective, they're going to cause also a lot of different side effects. And so, that's kind of where we're coming in. And ultimately, it's an easy fix, but it's not really getting to the root cause issue, and we're not really supporting these organ systems the way we should be, because ultimately I think it's just like a quick band-aid fix.
Hallelujah. Very well said. Thank you for saying that. So imagine listeners are getting out of school and being, okay, I'm only supposed to do these drugs and these diets, and I'm not treating the animal in front of me. I'm not treating the individual. And so what'd you do about it? Because you went out and got some more education and learned otherwise. And does it feel, did you feel like like the skies open up?
I always say it's like opening Pandora's box, right? Like once I opened it, I just couldn't go back to practicing the same way. I just couldn't see it the same way anymore. So when I got a little bit lucky because I had some personal issues that I had to overcome health-wise before I even became a doctor. So when I became a doctor, I already knew that I wasn't going to be your typical Western style type of doctor. I already had my thoughts as far as like, okay, I definitely want to be an integrative doctor and, be able to dab into both aspects of medicine. So I was lucky that when I went to LSU, I did have a few integrative rotations with a few actually, a few of my teachers were, they teach at the Chi University, which is one of the top schools here that teaches a lot of the holistic doctors, traditional Chinese medicine. So I was able to really get an idea of how to practice medicine in that way as a student. And that really also opened up the idea of how I wanted to practice after I got out. When I first started practicing though, I got lucky too that I started at a big practice where there was 8 to 10 doctors. And I feel like that's really important for most veterinarians because you come out of school and you know things through books, right? And so ultimately, you have a year of hands-on experience by doing your clinical rotations, but you're still so new and you really still need a lot of that guidance. And so having, so many doctors to just fall back on and have, the mentorship was really helpful for me to be able to become a good doctor in the Western aspect so that I could be able to say, okay, I know what I need to do in order to do the diagnostics, but once I have those, what do I do with that, right? I'm not going to just give the same pharmaceutical meds. And so ultimately, I was getting to that point where I was doing this giving those pharmaceutical meds, and then pets weren't getting better. And then also clients were getting frustrated. It's overwhelming to see your pet not improve. And, you're obviously being guided by these professionals who have dedicated their lives to being able to help your pet, but we do at some point get stuck. So that was also really sad for me to see and experience. And so I think that's what ultimately made me kind of seek all these other specialties and certifications that I have now.
Man, does that make sense to me? Because what doesn't make sense to me in the whole industry, or how there is a veterinarian that's been practicing for 20, 30 years and hasn't changed anything and hasn't grown. And
Yeah.
because I would think in 1 year, and I say this because I've interviewed so many veterinarians or vet techs or those who've dropped out, and the biggest reason they drop out is that first year where all they're doing is putting dogs down and pets down, and they're
Right.
not seeing what they learn help animals get better. So that's why it's so awful, listeners, is that we lose the good people, because if they weren't lucky enough to have some of the teachers that you did, because a lot of them don't ever have access to it. I always tell the story
it's
that
true.
when I speak at schools, I'm being invited by the holistic group, and I'm meeting them on their lunch. The school had nothing to do with it. So
Right.
that's why
Yes, that's very
I feel like
true.
it's so great that you had, that
Yeah.
you had access to that, to at least a
In
teacher.
Ross, right, sorry. In Ross, we did have an integrative holistic club, which I was vice president of. And it was one of those things where the club, the president and the vice president previous to us had kind of dropped the ball. And the club wasn't really active, so me and the president really had to take on a lot of responsibility and seek out, other practitioners and bring in guest speakers and things like that to get that club moving, and grow it in the number of students and stuff. And so, the school doesn't really ever get involved with it. It's really more of like, the students that are passionate about it that are the ones that start making an effect and, push for these kind of things and advocate for the change.
And it's like, it's another thing that makes no darn sense, because the literal oath is to do no harm, and that you're supposed to, every time you learn something, you're supposed to pass on your education and findings, and that's not what happens. And when you do it, when I do it, when a holistic veterinarian does it, the conventional world squashes it and calls it alternative medicine. I mean, when I started talking to holistic veterinarians and integrative veterinarians, and them telling me that they were being treated how I get treated, as the crazy woo-woo medicine, and it doesn't really work. I'm like, what? They're veterinarians just like you, and you won't take them seriously and listen to them? Man, I have a lot of work to do.
Yes. It's true. I feel like I'm a little bit lucky that I'm such a new vet, because there has been this huge shift, right, in the world, where now people are realizing like we need to go back to our basics, like medicine stemmed from herbs, and, we forgot all those things. And so now we're kind of taking a step back. And so I feel like I'm a little bit more accepted in the community. And so it's made my job a little bit easier. But I also, it's important to also honor the people that came before me that struggled, like you said, in trying to push for these things, because I'm sure 20, 30 years from now, if I was doing this, I would be probably getting, called a witch or something. Yeah.
Right. I just got called one the other day. They asked me, what did I practice? What kind of medicine are you practicing? And I said, witchcraft. Is that the answer you want?
Right.
I have a doll that looks like you right here.
Don't provoke me.
That's right. I love it. What do you think goes through a young veterinarian's mind that first year? Because when they don't have those teachers, Like, what are
Yeah.
they? And okay, so I'm talking about the ones that got into this because they really want to help animals,
Mhm. Yeah.
truly want to help animals.
I honestly feel really bad that we are in this state of when you come out, if you don't have enough mentorship, um, they become overwhelmed really easily. One, because as a veterinarian, you are technically supposed to know it all, right? So we are our own anesthesiologist or dental surgeon, orthopedic, soft tissue, ophthalmologist, like everything, we have to know it all, right? And so when clients come to us and we don't have the answers, or, they feel like we don't know enough, it's hard on us already, because ultimately we're trying our best, and we're human. So, we're not going to know it all. And, you know, you do things and then you're taught a certain way. So you're going about the way that you're taught to do things. And then when you don't get the results, and things go wrong, and the pet doesn't get better, or some worse, the pet happens to pass away, it really hits us hard. And that empathy, um, you know, burnout is real. It hits us really hard. And so I, it's just hard for me to see new grads coming out. And even, I'm in Facebook groups and things like that where we talk about helping each other out. And there's so many new grads that I see writing about how they wish they never chose this career, or how they just started practicing and they already have multiple clients yelling at them all the time, or, they're always getting complaints and things like that. And it's just really heartbreaking, because ultimately I know how they feel. And I wish, that we had a better community as far as, between vets, as far as like supporting each other.
So do people, are there the ones that don't know what they should do, and that's like you could further your education and you'll be able to help more? And
Yeah, I mean,
what
I
does
think a
that
lot of
mean?
it
What if,
is.
aren't you already in student debt from, going to school?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So definitely the debt is real. And that's another thing that I know, the veterinary field, it's getting more expensive too. And I know that's something that clients have been advocating, and I see it on a lot of posts, that they think we're just like money hungry and we're greedy, and that's all we want. But ultimately, we're just, again, we signed up for this because we love animals and we want to help them and we want to see them get better. There's never going to be a case where a veterinarian does not want your pet to get better. Now, sometimes animals have reactions to medications and things like that we can't control, or there's complications to situations. And so that's where, again, it's not a linear path where things are going to, pets are going to get better right away. And so that's where I feel people don't really understand that. And then they start criticizing us a lot more. And so, again, it's kind of going out there and then just trying to get into the right position of mentorship, so that you're able to really have a good foundation and people to help you around to kind of grow, to help you grow to become a better doctor. And really, a lot of it is just getting that practice.
Cool. Are you using hemp and mushrooms in your practice?
Of course I am.
Cool. I was like, I didn't ask that before we got on, so I just wanted to make sure before I just dove right into it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she does. She's at the Holistic
Yes.
Vet Conference. She probably does.
100%,
So
yes.
yeah, I'm gonna ask it again, so don't ask it like this.
Mhm.
I know that you use cannabis and mushrooms in your practice.
Yes,
Tell
I
me
sure do.
how you like incorporate them in some of your success cases that you have. First of all, I love that unlike pharmaceutical drugs, you literally can experiment and figure out what combo of mushrooms and hemp and strains of hemp can work without causing any harm at all. Everything's going to
Yes.
help them, but literally finding which ones or whatever is really fun. So I love being able to talk to my vets and see what they're doing and how they're helping. So tell me a little bit about how you've been using cannabis and
Yeah, of
mushrooms in your
course. I'd
practice.
be happy to. So I have a mobile practice, and it's a concierge style practice where I basically come in, and as an integrative doctor, I offer a little bit of just like a niche of uh, medications and alternative medicine that I use. So for me, I specialize in traditional Chinese medicine. So I'll come in, I'll do my Eastern and my Western exam. I have a lot of different tools like acupuncture, laser therapy, pulse electric magnetic field therapy, and then I incorporate a lot of Chinese herbs, food therapy, supplements, and then nutraceuticals like my mushrooms and my hemp. So because I am an integrative doctor, a lot of the times the people that come and seek me out are going to be patients or clients that their pets have been struggling with chronic illnesses, especially like cancer, unfortunately, a lot of, disease processes that cause a lot of pain and inflammation. And so we all know that CBD can help with all of that. And then, of course, mushroom is just going to help support your immune system for all of these situations, whether it's autoimmune, cancer, or chronic illnesses of like organ dysfunctions like heart disease and things like that.
Yeah, I don't, such a good point that you bring that, because I feel like the holistic vet is the last ditch effort, hopefully not all the time anymore, because now that more people know. And same thing, we used to do consultations all the time, and all we did was wean dogs off of pharmaceutical drugs that weren't helping them, that were making things worse. And they wanted to know, can I, is there a natural way? And we're like, yes, yes, yes. And here's all these holistic veterinarians that can help you do that. You absolutely can do this the integrative or holistic way if you want, especially if you're out there and your dog is not getting better, or your dog is on a steroid or an anti-suppressant drug that is just keeping their immune system suppressed, meaning it's going to be open and they're going to get something else. So that's not solving the problem, right? It's just masking.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, in case my listeners don't know, because there's so many dogs on these drugs, on these Apoquel and Cytopoint and all of these for years and years. And that's another thing. I can go, it's dangerous. It's in their pamphlet. It's on their website. You got to search for it. But people still don't believe me and call me a liar. So let's hear it from a holistic veterinarian.
Yes, of course. So so a lot of, like you said, a lot of my patients are coming in and they are on these medications. When I first started practicing medicine, I would use them a lot because those were the only tools that I had in my toolbox. After I started, kind of opened Pandora's box, and I was able to really learn a little bit more about all these alternative modalities. It really did give me an insight as far as how these pharmaceutical drugs work and the long-term effects to it. So sometimes when we have acute cases where things aren't really controlled and the dog is suffering, I do feel like they're appropriate to give in a small quantity and for a short time, just to kind of control things. But if you're giving them long term, then that's when we are going to start having those issues, right? And so Cytopoint ultimately, and Apoquel, I try to avoid them as much as I can. I have even the personal experience with my own dogs where before I became a holistic doctor, they were getting these medications. And then after I, got into acupuncture and Chinese herbs and was doing CBD and mushrooms, I was able to take them off of it completely. And now they don't ever need it. And especially when it comes to food therapy as well, too. And so again, like you said, these drugs ultimately, they're going to start causing side effects 100%. There's no way out of that.
And these drug side effects are not runny nose, diarrhea, lethargy. No, they are, I don't know if you've seen the 2020 update to Apoquel's pamphlet, which I'm assuming is because so many veterinarians and pet parents called in complaints to the FDA, CVM, that they just said, hey, you got to put it on your pamphlet. And it's on there, but the customer never gets the pamphlet. And even if they do get the pamphlet, you literally have to get a magnifying glass and reading glasses to read it. And when you do, it literally lists all the cases of cancer with dogs, all of the amounts, different types of cancer that these dogs are getting. And everybody keeps asking how, why is one, I heard now it's 1 in 2 dogs by the age of 10 is going to be diagnosed with cancer. So people want to know why. This is why. They're dangerous. And I get it. They are. I'll never forget the first time I said it to a veterinarian and they're like, what's wrong with Apoquel? You give it for 3 days to stop whatever the hell's going on, and then you figure it out. You take them off. I'm like, that's not how it's being used.
That's not how they're using it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So,
and now I think they're getting rid of it, and they're going towards Cytopoint, which now you have to come in every 8 weeks to get the injection, meaning you never get the pamphlet. You never see any information. And now I go on the Cytopoint's website, and it's all about their new app and new thing to send you a reminder to go into that vet office every 8 weeks to get that injection. Not how do we figure out what the root of the issue is type of thing.
Correct.
So they're not interested in you finding the root.
These medications are Band-Aids at the end of the day. The owner's going to see improvements, but it's not ultimately going to help the body, right? It's going to suppress something and just cause some more issues. And, I didn't want to mention the cancer on Apoquel, but you said it. So you're correct on that aspect.
In the pamphlet.
Unfortunately,
and I feel like
these medications are not the safest.
I'd like to change it from being called a Band-Aid maybe to like a staple, because a Band-Aid is something we put over so that it can heal. And that's not what it's doing. It's making the symptoms stop, but it's making things so much worse. We don't even know all the things that it's doing. As you know, I go on tour and talk all the time. All I'm doing this year is talking about synthetics and how our body doesn't know what to do with these synthetic chemicals. And that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
And
another
it does
drug
know what
too,
to do with Chinese herbs. It does know.
Yeah. Yeah. And another medication that I don't know if you've looked into is Librela, that recently got released here in the US. And again, it's used for osteoarthritis. And again, it's one of those things where, for example, for me, I do carry Librela in my practice. But it's always used as a last-ditch effort where I have patients where we're looking at their quality of life. It's so severe that if we don't try this medication, we're thinking already about euthanasia. And so that's usually when I will say, okay, I'm willing to try this medication if it means giving this dog a month or 2 of mobility and being happy with their pet parents, as opposed to trying it on a dog that's 3 years old that's already developing arthritis. Because unfortunately with this drug too, we're getting a lot of different side effects, and we're not too sure, why these dogs are getting it when they're not on the list of the clinical signs of side effects or adverse effects that are on the pamphlet. So something.
When I get dogs that are in that stage, they get my extra strength ease or horse ease or, one of the stronger, potent extracts. And I've never not been able to control it. Like I've never had to put a dog down. And remember, I ran a rescue for 17 years where all I did is take in the last 5-6 years was take in old sick dogs so that I could see if I could help them with hemp and mushroom and diet, which I did. I never had that. Matter of fact, I would get lame dogs into my farm and get them walking again just by food, hemp and whatever. So I don't see a place for this drug. And I think it's going to be another one of these things where why are we creating something when we do have something, but nobody knows about it? Because I'm not a giant. I'm not Zoetis. How do you say it? I know I say it wrong, but I refuse to say it right.
I think you said it right. Yeah.
Oh, someone was like, "That's not how you say it," and I'm like,
maybe I'm saying it wrong too then. Yeah.
And I can't trust anybody who puts out the drug Apoquel. and who is, I've got the research that shows me that these people, these giant pharmaceutical companies are going to continue to not share and squash the information of these all natural adaptogens, herbs, and hemp that do all these amazing things. Because they're not making money off of it. And they can't make money off of it because they can't patent nature and make billions of dollars off of it.
Right. And if we actually do cure patients and help them in that aspect, then that also, takes away a patient that would be paying for the rest of their life with the medication.
Right. Yeah, I was amazed that of course, my holistic vets cared, but, when I started to be able to put cancer into remission with those three things, diet, mushrooms, and hemp, my holistics cared, but nobody else cares. Or when
No.
when they go back to their veterinarian that told them their dog would be dead 6 months ago, and it's alive and well and thriving, and they go, "Whoa, what did you do?" I gave him CBD. Great. Keep on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What nut does it make you want to know? What brand? Tell me more about it. What happened? This is incredible. You know what I'm saying? Like, why isn't there that?
I'm not
tell
sure
me more?
why there's some
Maybe because they're
doctors
busy?
that are not, maybe, or
Too busy?
I don't know
'Cause aren't
why
you
it's hard for them to open their thought process when it comes to
Would
holistic
it be
modalities.
because
Even my
they're
colleague,
getting? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, because even, colleagues of mine who I went to vet school were, best friends at this point, right? There'll be situations where there'll be cases that we talk about and I'll recommend certain things. And I feel like sometimes they just brush me off because for some reason, they just feel like it's not valid what I'm stating, or they feel
It's
like,
woo-woo again.
yeah, it's like woo-woo. And it's like, unless they have their own personal experience where something happens to them personally or to their pet, and then they're able to really dab into these modalities and then see it for themselves, then it's for some reason really hard to really take them away from the way they think and they were trained. And I think it just goes back to, the way we're taught in vet school. It's like, okay, everything has to be scientifically proven, even though we do know that all these modalities have been scientifically proven. But for some reason, it's like they just want you to work your brain in this certain aspect. And I don't know. It's hard.
I feel like it also goes back to something that you keep saying, that there's this sort of Pandora's box. And once you begin to acknowledge that there's another way, then there's kind of this piling on of all these other modalities and opportunities that you then should really explore. And so instead of, they just kind of like stop it up and ignore all of those possibilities so that they don't have to address just an alternative way of thinking, which is kind of necessary,
Yeah.
Well, there's also
I agree.
I did it wrong. I've been doing it wrong all this time, which, as a pet parent, I went through that. I'm
Right.
It's not a joke, but I say my first book is going to be how to not kill your dog or go broke trying to save it, because you have to learn and you have to practice how to take care of it, because the information out there is not out there. So there's that acceptance of, I have to learn another way, meaning I didn't know the right way, but wait a minute, I went to school for this, type of thing. So you have to accept all that. So I love going to the Holistic Vet Conference because I get to be around people who are so open-minded and what's next, what's working, and get to talk to each other and share knowledge instead of just going to that prescription every time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's really retraining your brain, which I completely had to do. And so now when I look at cases, I'll never look at them the same way as I did when I first came out of vet school, for sure.
I hear that all the time from the holistic. I love it. All right, don't we have some fun? Let's ask her some fun questions. I feel like this has been so serious.
Yeah.
And you met me and I was just down on the floor making out with your dog, and now it's a serious podcast.
Yes, I have proof.
That's right, so do I.
Okay, Dr. Liy, Let's do some like rapid fire questions. We're just gonna
Ooh,
go either or, this or that.
okay.
Are you down to play?
Sure. I'm a little nervous now, but yeah.
I promise they'll be pretty easy.
Okay.
um, do you have a favorite fictional animal?
Ooh, I would say maybe a unicorn.
Okay. Big dogs or small dogs?
Big dogs.
Ooh. What about fresh food or kibble?
Oh, fresh food. 100%,
Duh.
please.
Okay. That was easy. That was an easy one. Um,
Or you could
can you
say
get
raw versus gently cooked.
Ooh,
Well, you know what the answer for that is? It depends.
Okay, but for
right.
you. Oh, for your dog too? Depends.
Yes, so whether they're elderly or young, elderly dogs, their spleen chi needs more warming energy. So a lot of times raw food can be a little bit harder on their digestive tract.
Mm.
So you want to do more freshly cooked or warming foods. But yeah, I love them both.
That's the
Raw and
first
fresh
time.
is at the top.
So all I do, of course, I was very all about researching, watching, looking at what was going on in my farm. What are these old dogs going through? And
Hmm.
every time when they hit geriatric, all my small dogs, seniors hit seniors and needed to go to a gently cooked. And no, I have said this so many times, and no one has ever said what you just said.
Really?
Never.
That's
And I have
surprising.
interviewed so many traditional Chinese and I've said it and nobody's ever said that to me. I go, I know something's going on because every single one, and this is like the stage that it would go, I did raw, then it would have to go to gently cooked. And then when it got into geriatric 16, 17, 18,
Hmm.
I often had to introduce a digestive enzyme
Yeah.
type of thing. Now, I'm not a vet. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just watching what all of these dogs are going through. And that's what never makes
They
sense
were
to me
telling
about.
you.
They're telling
Yeah.
me, and that's why I don't understand a conventional vet who's seeing a dog over and over and over again, why they're not figuring it out. So, thank you for saying that. We need
You're
to,
welcome.
there's so many tidbits, Carter, in this podcast that we need to take out because I just did a video on Librella. So I think that's so funny that you brought it up.
Yeah.
And do we need to have her say it again?
I think it was pretty clear.
Man, and that was from a rapid fire. Thank you so much for saying that. All right, but I'm
You're
not
very
sure I got
welcome.
it. Explain it to me again.
Okay.
The spleen.
Yeah. Yes. So our spleen and our stomach belong to our earth element, right? And our spleen chi is usually what helps transform and digest our nutrition. And so our spleen chi usually needs warming energy. So a lot of times, as we get older, we're going to become spleen chi deficient. And so that is the reason why a lot of times our elderly patients can't handle raw food because it's when we were taught, to drink water, we're taught to drink normal room temperature to warming water because our spleen chi is what needs that. And so if you drink cold water or you eat cold foods, it's harder for your body to regulate the temperature to help digest it. And so you're working that spleen chi energy a little bit more, and it's already deficient. So it's going to struggle even more in digesting these foods. And so that's ultimately why you want to give them things that are going to be warming or gently cooked.
Hallelujah. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
That's
you're
going to go
welcome.
all over the internet.
Yay.
Yeah, I think we're way over time. We
Oh,
don't need to
yeah.
ask any more rapid questions. Thank you so much. That was an incredible interview. I learned something. I learned a lot, but I
Aw,
really love that you
yeah,
taught me that, and I can't wait for people to learn more from you. Thank you for
of
striving
course.
to be
Thank
the
you.
best and do the best you can for animals. We really, really appreciate it.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you
Dr.
so much,
Liy.
Angela. Thank you. I'm really happy you guys had me on this podcast, and I had a lot of fun.
Good. Thank you.